All right, so you've decided to take the plunge with us into Save America. You're probably wondering if it's more than just another political memoir, right? Beyond the headlines and the sound bites, what's the real substance? Well, that's what we're here to uncover. Think of this deep dive as your shortcut to understanding the core ideas in Trump's book without having to wade through all the pages.
Yeah, you're spot on. Save America is more than just a recap of Trump's time in office. It's really his attempt to lay out a blueprint for America's future. It gets into his personal philosophy of leadership, his take on American values, and what he sees as the key challenges and solutions for the country moving forward.
Okay, so it's like a combination of personal memoir and political strategy guide. Interesting. One thing that really jumps out in the book is how much emphasis Trump puts on leadership. He seems to have a very specific view of what makes a strong leader.
Absolutely. He consistently highlights the importance of bold, decisive action. Even when it's unpopular or faces criticism, he argues that true leaders aren't swayed by public opinion or what's trending on social media. They make the tough calls based on what they believe is right, even if it ruffles feathers.
He actually uses the phrase, "Make America Great Again in the book, tying it back to his 2016 campaign slogan.
Right, which reinforces this idea of not shying away from past successes, even if they've been criticized or fallen out of favor. He seems to be saying that real leadership is about sticking to your convictions and taking action, regardless of the backlash.
And he definitely gives examples of this in the book. For example, he talks about his decision to withdraw the U.S. from the Trans-Pacific Partnership trade deal.
Yeah.
He frames it as putting American workers and businesses first, even though it went against the advice of some of his own advisors. It's a really clear example of him prioritizing what he saw as American interests, even if it meant going against the grain.
Yeah, that decision really embodies his approach to leadership. It was a calculated risk that challenged conventional wisdom on trade policy. And that's a recurring theme throughout the book. His willingness to disrupt the status quo and take unconventional approaches.
And that leads us into another fascinating part of the book. Those behind-the-scenes glimpses into some of the most pivotal and controversial decisions of his presidency. It's like getting a peek behind the curtain of the Oval Office.
He doesn't shy away from tackling those tough topics. He addresses things like the border wall, the trade war with China, and even his handling of the COVID-19 pandemic. He lays out his reasoning, the factors he considered, and the intended outcomes. It provides a unique perspective on how those decisions were made, even if you don't agree with the choices themselves.
Right. For example, he talks about the tariffs he imposed on goods from China, a move that sent shockwaves through the global economy. What's his rationale there?
Well, he argues that those tariffs were necessary to protect American jobs and businesses from what he saw as unfair trade practices by China. He presents it as a strategic move to rebalance the trade relationship and force China to negotiate fairer terms. It's a very assertive approach, prioritizing American interests above all else.
So even if you disagree with the approach,
Yeah.
it's interesting to understand the thought process behind it.
Exactly. And whether those tariffs ultimately achieved their intended goals is still debated by economists. Some argue they hurt American consumers and businesses in the long run, while others contend they were a necessary tool to counter China's economic practices.
It's like there's no easy answer, and the consequences are complex and far-reaching.
That's precisely what makes this deep dive so compelling. Save America challenges you to think critically about these issues and consider different perspectives. It's not about blindly accepting or rejecting his ideas, but rather engaging with them on a deeper level.
And speaking of deeper levels, the book isn't just about policy and economics. It also delves into Trump's vision of American values and what he calls Americanism.
You're right. He emphasizes classic American ideals: freedom, self-reliance, personal responsibility. He argues that these values are essential to America's identity and success.
It almost sounds like a return to a more traditional, perhaps even nostalgic view of America.
That's a great point. It's like he's calling for a resurgence of these core principles,
Yeah.
which he believes have been eroded or forgotten in recent times.
And that seems to connect to his vision for America's future.
Absolutely. He sees the revival of these values as crucial to solving the challenges facing America. It's like he's saying we need to rediscover our roots, our strengths, to navigate the complexities of the modern world.
There's a line in the book where he says, "The American spirit is unbreakable. It's time to unleash that spirit once again." It's very much an appeal to that sense of national pride and resilience.
It's a powerful message, especially for those who feel that America has lost its way.
It's definitely thought-provoking. So he's laying out this foundation of values, but how does that translate into specific solutions for the challenges facing America? That's what I'm curious to unpack next.
Well, one of the biggest areas he focuses on is economic independence. He argues that America needs to reduce its reliance on other countries, particularly for things like manufacturing and energy.
That makes sense given his America First philosophy. But how does he propose we actually achieve that?
He talks about bringing manufacturing jobs back to the U.S., investing in American industries, and reducing reliance on foreign supply chains. It's about rebuilding a strong industrial base here at home.
It's like a back to basics approach, focusing on what made America an economic powerhouse in the past.
Exactly. And he ties this directly to his vision for American workers. He believes that by revitalizing these industries, we can create more well-paying jobs and opportunities for American citizens.
So it's not just about economic strength as an abstract concept. It's about connecting that strength to tangible benefits for American workers.
Precisely. And this focus on economic independence extends to energy policy as well. He advocates for achieving energy dominance through increased domestic production of oil and gas.
That seems to fit with his overall message of self-reliance and reducing dependence on other nations.
Absolutely. He argues that by maximizing our own energy resources, we can become less vulnerable to global energy markets and geopolitical pressures.
It's interesting how he weaves together these different threads. Economics, energy, national security. It's all part of a bigger tapestry of what he sees as American strength and resilience.
And speaking of national security, that's another key pillar of his vision for America's future. He believes that a strong military is essential for deterring adversaries and protecting American interests globally.
That's a consistent theme throughout his political career. But he goes beyond just advocating for a strong military right.
Yes, he also emphasizes the importance of strategic alliances and partnerships. He talks about working with like-minded nations to counter threats and maintain global stability.
So it's not just about military might. It's about using that strength strategically and in collaboration with allies.
Exactly. And he's also very vocal about the need to confront what he sees as threats from China and other adversaries. He frames it as a battle for global dominance, and he believes America needs to be assertive in protecting its interests.
It sounds like he sees the world as a very competitive, even adversarial place.
That's definitely a recurring theme. He portrays a world where America is constantly challenged and needs to fight to maintain its position of leadership.
And within that context, he lays out his vision for how America should navigate this complex global landscape.
Right. He talks about the need for strong leadership, strategic decision-making, and a willingness to stand up for American values and interests. He argues that America can't afford to be passive or complacent in the face of these challenges.
It's like he's issuing a call to action, urging America to step up and reclaim its role as a global leader.
That's a great way to put it. And woven throughout all of these ideas, whether it's economic policy, energy independence, or national security, is this overarching theme of putting America first.
It's like he's saying we need to prioritize our own needs and interests above all else. It's a very clear and consistent message throughout the book.
And it's a message that resonates with a certain segment of the American population. Those who feel that America has lost its way, that its leaders have prioritized global interests over the needs of their own citizens.
It's definitely a perspective that challenges the status quo and conventional thinking on foreign policy and global engagement.
And that's one of the most interesting things about Save America. It forces you to confront these big questions about America's role in the world, its values, and its priorities.
It's like he's offering an alternative vision, a different path forward for America.
Exactly. And whether you agree with that vision or not, it's important to understand it, to engage with its ideas, and to consider its potential consequences.
And speaking of consequences, one of the things that really struck me about the book is how much emphasis Trump places on legacy. It's clear that he sees Save America as more than just a memoir. It's his attempt to shape how history will remember him and his presidency.
He repeatedly mentions wanting to leave a lasting impact, to ensure that his ideas and policies continue to influence America even after he's gone.
It makes you think about the broader question of how leaders, regardless of their specific policies, shapes the political landscape and leave their mark on history.
Absolutely. It's like throwing a stone into a pond. The ripples continue to spread outwards long after the initial splash, and in Trump's case, those ripples are likely to be felt for years to come, whether you agree with his approach or not.
Especially given how much he emphasizes continuity. He repeatedly calls for others to carry on his legacy, to keep fighting for the principles he's laid out in Save America.
It's almost like he's creating a movement, a set of guiding principles for those who share his vision for America.
That makes me think about the passage where he talks about the forgotten men and women of America, those who he feels have been overlooked by the political establishment. It seems like he's trying to empower those people, to give them a voice and a sense of purpose.
Yeah, it's a powerful message,
Yep.
especially for those who feel disenfranchised or left behind by the current system.
It's definitely a theme that has resonated with a significant portion of the American population.
And that's what makes Save America such a fascinating and important read. It gives us a window into the worldview of a leader who has fundamentally reshaped American politics.
It's like getting a glimpse into the mind of someone who has tapped into a deep well of sentiment and frustration of the country.
And whether you admire him, disagree with him,
Yeah.
or fall somewhere in between, there's no denying that his ideas have had a profound impact on the American political landscape.
It's definitely a book that challenges you to think critically about America's past,
Yeah.
present, and future.
And that's ultimately the value of a deep dive like this. It's not just about absorbing information, but about engaging with ideas, wrestling with different perspectives,
Yeah.
and coming to your own conclusions.
So if you're intrigued by what you've heard today, we highly encourage you to seek out Save America and read it for yourself. Form your own opinions, challenge the ideas, and engage in thoughtful discussions with others.
Because regardless of your political stance, this book offers a valuable opportunity to understand a worldview that is shaping the course of American history.
Well said. And on that note, we'll leave you to ponder all this. Happy reading. And until next time, keep diving deep